How's everybody doing?
Good morning. Good morning.
Awesome.
Awesome. I want to remind everybody, if you didn't notice, we didn't have an industry update last week because we did the State of the Atlanta Industry live stream. And the reason we did the live stream was because we had the sales rocket class going on, and we weren't able to actually do an in-person one, which is not something we intend on doing going forward. We will have them in person, but the unique opportunity is we have a recording, and it is a 2-hour recording of all the stats in the Atlanta real estate market. And I think it would serve you well to go study the market. And obviously we hit highlights on this call every Monday morning, but that's a full study of the market, and it's a unique opportunity. I would just encourage you, if you didn't watch it, you definitely should find time to go watch that, because it is a deep dive on the state of the Atlanta real estate. Oh, there you go. Luke put it in the chat for everybody, and it's in Circle as well. All right. Miss Toya is driving the ship today.
Yeah, I'm looking to make sure that I have screen share options.
You do.
All right. Cool beans. So we're going to start with Fulton County.
All right. So I want to, before you jump into this, I want to make a comment. So you're probably reading in the news media that the real estate industry hit an all-time low in September. We've stalled, and that's probably a true statement, right? Like, and that's national news. But here's what I want to say before we actually look at numbers is, yes, there's been a little bit of a lull. Yes, there's been a little bit of a stall in the real estate space, but I want you to trust that it's short-term and temporary. And what I want you to trust is your commitment to your daily activities. And I don't want you to let the stall of the market cause your daily activities to stall, because I wholeheartedly believe we've got this big election coming up, and interest rates kind of stalled out as well. I think this morning they were like 6.9, which is really close to 7% again. But I promise you, come December, January, February, the market is not going to be stalled like it is currently. And if your lack of activity today is due to the feeling of the market, you're actually shooting yourself in the foot for what's coming. Like, you should be doing your activities just the same this week that you did last week and next week. And it'll be interesting, because I think what we're looking at on numbers is the 30-day of the, rates went to 6.1%. So there was a quick surge, and then they stalled out and climbed back up. And so the feeling out there is there's a stall, but we're actually seeing numbers that started 30 days ago on these reports, right? Does that make sense? What I really want you to hear is your activities should be disciplined and done regardless of what the feeling of the marketplace is. But you're not wrong in having a feeling that the market stalled a little bit. And I actually think it's going to feel that way until after this election. Do you agree or disagree? What are your thoughts?
I agree. I think there's the election, we're going to see a little bit of stalling. We're also going to see maybe people stall because the holidays are coming up as well. And so I think we should have objections ready for both of those in terms of just handling buyer and seller objections on how to get around that.
I think you've got to double down in connections and contacts. If your intention is to get your unfair share, and it should always be to get your unfair share, you've got to double down. If you wait to get your fair share and the market slips and slides, or maybe it doesn't recover quite as fast as we hope it does, you need to be out in front of it. And you have to think like a farmer. And if you don't plant your seeds and fertilize and water now, you can't wait till spring and then decide to plant seeds and start watering and fertilizing. Someone else already did, and they're capturing the unfair share component. So this is a high contact, connection opportunity to make sure you're connected to your database.
100%. I think one of the things we talk about in business planning clinic is if you don't have a plan, like if you wake up every day going, hey, what am I supposed to do today? You don't have a plan. Or if you wake up every day going, who am I supposed to call today? You don't have a plan. Well, the plan is irrelevant of what's going on in the market, right? So Zena said, what's unfair share, Rick? That's a good question for you to take.
That means capturing market share from someone who's asleep and failed to plant seeds and fertilize. I mean, at the end of the day, it's fair game. Anybody who's, has capacity to buy or sell real estate is open season and fair game, in my opinion. And if you, act with integrity and with nobility and you're, high standards, it's about connecting. There's probably someone right now sleeping, instead of lead generating. To me, unfair share means capturing an opportunity where they may know realtors, but they don't know you. And to be honest, in some ways, you've got to wake up with the mindset that without you in the equation, they're going to suffer. You literally have to position yourself with a value proposition so strong that you're doing the world a disfavor by not showing up as often as you can to serve people at the highest level.
Perfect.
Agreed. All right. Can you see my screen? Okay.
All right. You want me to go or you go?
Oh, I can drive it. So we're looking.
You're in charge, Toya.
Oh, cool. I love that.
You didn't have to actually say that out loud, Brad.
Not really. Well, looking at Fulton County, we'll start there and just looking at the number of actives that we had coming off of the week. So 854, down just a little bit from the week before and probably a few weeks. So looking at that number, comparing us really to the last week of September, we probably saw similar activity there in terms of activity. So I would say it's just a little down. Again, I think people are waiting on what's going to happen after the election. So having a good script in order to activate that, I think that's what we really need right now. But looking to see what's active under contract, it doesn't look like there's a huge big dip in terms of what's going under contract. What would your thoughts be? I don't really see a difference there.
I don't there, but look at the close number. The close number, granted, it's the end of the month, but that's pretty darn strong. I would argue that relative to this data, it's held its ground. There's not a slip and slide that's happened in the last few weeks.
Well, the only thing I would add to that, Rick, and I'm not trying to be the naysayer, but those contracts are probably locked in at low sixes. And when the rates went up closer to 7, I think you're going to see the numbers in the next few weeks that are affected by that.
Yeah, the active under contract would probably be your best and pending. And those are definitely down looks like about 10 to 15%, maybe 20 at the peak.
I think it's about 20% down. And I think we're going to experience that going into the election. But here's the other thing you need to see in that is, it's not falling off a cliff. It's just down 10 to 20%. So there's still 100 people in Fulton County that said yes to a contract last week. There's 214 that are holding on for their new home. There's 23 that are getting their house ready to go on the market. There's 854 that said, I would sell today for the right price. So there is opportunity in the market.
And I still look at the opportunity with withdrawals and expires. When we're talking about getting our fair share, guys, that's a great area and opportunity for us to go after. Something happened, something did not work. So I do think that is another layer that we need to just kind of sharpen our tools and things of that nature in order to go after that business as well. Anything else you would add there in Fulton County? If not, we're going to jump over to Cobb.
Nope, go for it.
All right. So here in Cobb, we've got active 466 active. We kind of saw similar activities right there that last week in September. So if I'm looking to say, you know, of course, we're down just a little bit, but we already know why we're down. But just looking at the similarities between the last week of September and almost the last week of October, to me, there's some similarities there. But going in terms of holding strong closed units, Rick, to your point, 224. Listen, that's an uptick. So people are closing deals. Those things, whether it's because of the interest rates or regardless of just trying to get moved before the end of the year, we are seeing some steadiness there. Coming soons, we've got coming soons. I think that those are pretty flat. I don't know that there's a small uptick in that. But looking to see what we have under contract, we're down a little bit, but we're still actively having some people ready to go. And then withdrawn and expireds, withdrawns, there's, you know, I always say that there's something different between these two when people decide to withdraw it before it actually expires. What's really happening in that conversation or the confidence of the seller at that point? Would you all add anything else to that one?
No, not at all. I think the numbers actually don't tell the story that I was telling. Maybe the actives and the pendings. You can see that in Fulton better than you can see it in Cobb. Click over to DeKalb. Let's see what they look like.
All right.
Yeah, Brett needs more evidence.
No, I have a feeling and I'm looking for facts.
All right. So what's your feeling right now? Let's look at DeKalb. What's the feeling?
Well, inventory is holding. Actives under contract at 73.
Yeah.
You know, if you look back a few weeks, that's normal. You might have had a little spike early October, but pendings, those look good. If I can read that right, is that
164?
164. Yeah. And closed units are up. So the story that I'm seeing is there's similarities in each one of these counties. I'm looking at the similarities in terms of last week in September, last week in October, similarities. Closed units are up for the last few months, to be honest, particularly in DeKalb County. So we had 190 closed units. I think that speaks a lot of positivity in terms of what we're finding. So if we can get them and get the listings, we can certainly make sure that they're closing because we're seeing that pattern.
Well, and to be super compelling with your clients, this is important data, and it's a great benchmark against your local market. So your micro market is really where your value proposition should shine brightest. And being able to say, hey, here's what's going on in the entire county. Now let's talk about Summerhill, Grant Park, Inman Park, whatever, Alpharetta, Marietta. That's where you've got to really sharpen your pencil. And that's where your expertise is going to compel people to move forward. And that's the goal.
I love that. Brett, what's your feeling? Let's go with your gut.
No. I'm telling you what I'm hearing from agents is the feeling out there is things have slowed down. It's stalled.
Right.
I don't have data to prove it. I don't see it in these numbers yet. But I don't believe the agents are wrong. I do believe that there's a feeling that things have stalled for a minute. My leadership response to that is don't let the feeling change your plan. Your plan should always be your plan. And you should, to Rick's point, you probably might even need to double down on your plan, because I know if we just keep doing the activities, this is a temporary feeling that will fade.
And here's the other thing that we know is we see a lull in productivity with all market centers January and February. So let November be your January. Let it be the one that you're doubling down in terms of just making sure that you're making the calls, making the connections, whatever it is, your superpower that you're using, that we are making sure that we're having those conversations so that we can convert at a high level and build our pipeline business.
Yep.
Here's what I see too, Toya. There's enough opportunity here that when I talked about unfair share earlier, I'll get even clearer. Your unfair share might be that if the average realtor sells one house a month, you sell three. And what I know based on average sales prices in Atlanta, that if you sell three instead of one, you'll make a couple $100,000 a year more. And so you're talking a few hundred opportunities, and you need to capture one more, maybe two more at the whatever sales price or average sales price your local market, supports.
There's a question in the chat that says, can you provide more insight on the large number of expires for Fulton and DeKalb counties in the week of October 7th?
Yeah, so there's always a spike at the beginning of a month because it's picking up the expired listings that were the expiration date was the end of the previous month. So that's probably what you saw. But I also believe we're moving into an expired listing market because there's a larger percentage of listings that are expiring. If you watch that state of the industry, it's about 10% more than what we've been trending. We're getting close to over 40% of listings are expiring.
Yeah.
And that's a big percentage.
It is.
It is, but if you look at 8.5, 9.5, and 10.5, they're all within 6 or 7. That's remarkably consistent still. There is a difference. 9, there were only 104, say only, but it was a lot lower than that 6 months ago. So trending, it is trending.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's hit the articles.
All right, so first one up is downtown Atlanta hasn't seen this many planned apartments in 20 years. This article was very interesting to me because as we went to my hometown, Sweet Home, Alabama, there was a conversation that came up, where does everyone live? And I think we're seeing a lot of cities actually pour into the apartment side of things. And that's exactly what this article speaks to, that the projects included well over 2,000 units. Office space proposed for the 52-story Georgia Pacific Tower and the 41-story 2 Peachtree building. In terms of units that are just coming in and pouring into the downtown area. What are you all's thoughts on that?
Well, a couple thoughts. One is you realize there's still opportunity to make money on apartments, right? I think we don't need to go too deep into that, but there's still commission opportunity inside of this conversation. 1, 2, the data says that I think it was like 58% of the people in the last 12 months that rented actually considered buying before they made the decision to rent. So that tells me maybe there was a missed opportunity of having that conversation with somebody. They just gave up and rented. The third thing is there's this big conversation around rent versus own that it heats up sometimes in our industry and then it fades in our industry. And I actually believe that conversation is heating up because the cost of rent historically was always much lower than homeownership. And, we could have that conversation around, oh, well, you build wealth in homeownership and you're putting money in your pocket versus somebody else's pocket. However, my guess is the cost of those rentals would be very comparable to the cost of owning a condo downtown or the cost of a single family home commutable to downtown. And I believe that these are our future people that are committed to a certain geography and then your future homeowners that you're going to sell houses to.
I would agree. If you look at, it says the new apartment projects also feature affordable units. I do think that that is a huge component that all of these apartment projects are looking at. 80% of the area median income or $1,500 for a studio to $2,500 for a 4-bedroom. Typically, they're going, if there's government money included in any of these projects, which it is, you've got to have something that speaks to affordability. And I think you're absolutely correct, Brett. I think some people are just waiting to see when is going to be the best time for them to buy. I know that was my experience in new construction. The apartment complex were our favorite places to actually go and try to find new buyers because some of them were just waiting for the right housing project to be built or just, because they had to relocate here for whatever reason, they needed to find something quickly.
Yeah.
So I thought it was interesting that 750 are going to be between Underground Atlanta and the new Gulch Reinvention Centennial Yards alone. And there's also 120 million being raised in city issued bonds for transportation improvement, which is really a big vital component in quality of life for our urban environments. And, you know, revitalization and upgrading is critical. So I'm kind of happy about the narrative. And I also, you know, the prognosticators are saying we're still going to gain 50, 60,000 people a year for the next 7, 8, 10 years. It's still going to create a deficit and an opportunity. And where I am, you know, I spend a lot of time on the north end near Dawsonville and Gainesville. There's 2 or 3 communities just in my path driving home that are build to rent homes, single family. So there's huge opportunity for investors still in our greater market.
100%.
I love it. This was interesting. This is right out of Inman, 7 new rules of the road for real estate transactions. We've talked so much about what's happened during the fallout of the lawsuit that has changed our industry forever. I thought this was interesting just to find out how to me, it speaks on going back to basics and how do we navigate and what type of agent do you need to be in the market of the moment. But they did bring out, 8 different ways in terms of for us to really make sure that we know how to navigate through these transactions. And one was just the education piece, properly advising the consumers. I think we still have an opportunity here to really be able to help buyers and sellers understand that they have a choice. And that wasn't always the case in our market. We would just say, hey, you're the seller, you've got to pay for, the compensation. Hopefully they've always had a choice, but maybe we didn't relay that they had a choice. So I think this speaks volumes to that. Some of the other things that came out were avoiding commission inquisitions and making sure that we're practicing the fair conversation to say, hey, how do we offer compensation? Do you want to offer compensation as a seller? And what does it look like for the buyer in terms of their financial responsibilities?
Yep.
Anything else that you all would pull from this article at all?
Well, I one of the things that I think I read on top of this article was when the NAR settlement came out, and there was new conversations, calling a listing agent saying, hey, what are you offering on buyer agent commission? And I wasn't emotionally prepared for them to say, oh, it's negotiable, make an offer. And I actually have seen screenshots of where agents got emotional in their communication around how the business was being done. And I actually see inside of this is like, hey, get back to business, stay in logic, pull the emotion out of the conversations, because I've actually watched some agents harm their buyers because they got emotional in communication with another agent. So then the agent's like, I'm not going to work with them. And it actually harms their client's position. But all that to say, it's just a new playbook, and maybe you read this article and just ask yourself, what is my tactic? What is my strategy, right?
Yeah. One of the other things that stood out to me in this article is really understanding and utilizing a true buyer's consultation and not just showing up, meeting the buyer at the property. I think, when homes were flying off the shelf, we would say we didn't have time to really do a full buyer's consultation, but there are some true ramifications that can come back from that, especially in Atlanta. If you're late, now you're trying to backdoor getting paperwork signed. And also they spoke about what type of documents are we using. We don't have to use exclusive buyer brokerage agreements. So I just think it really does talk about what are the standards and what do you use in terms of your value proposition of how you're working with both buyers and sellers.
And
Rick?
this is that value squared class.
Yes,
If you
it is.
haven't taken value squared, you absolutely need to take that class, because it's all about positioning how you believe, what you believe your value proposition is, but not just what you believe it is, but how do you present it and how do you communicate it and how do you use that to lower the friction you're having with consumers around paying your commissions.
Yep. All right. This was an interesting article, and thank you so much, because this is right in our stomping grounds here on the South Side.
I don't know where
This
the headline went, but it's,
I know, I'm looking for, here
oh, there
it
it
is.
is.
Yes, National Home Builder plans hundreds of for sale townhomes in South Atlanta. And we've been talking a lot about what's been happening on the South Corridor of the Atlanta market, but the largest home builder, D.R. Horton, is expanding and they're building a 210 detached townhomes unit here in right off, not that far from Camp Creek Parkway, not that far from the airport. And it really does target more of affordable housing. So I don't know if there's anything else that you all would add to that, but we are seeing, you know, some of these new plans pop up. So this is going to be a huge development.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting conversations is affordable housing might not come quickly in single family, but might come faster in multifamily, meaning a builder can go put townhomes on the ground and keep it affordable, but couldn't build a neighborhood and keep it affordable. So if you have buyers and they're looking for their first time home, or they're looking for affordable housing, you may need to educate yourself around, hey, maybe our first house, let's put you in a townhome for a couple years, grab the equity from that and move you to a single family in a few years and get them into housing. And they may be saying, no, I got to have a yard. Well, some of these townhomes have decent little yards, or they have a dog park, or they have a, you know, so I think you just need to pay attention that affordable housing may not look like what it used to look like in the past. And you just need to be able to consult future homeowners into something and help them see the vision and the power of owning and then move later, right?
Yeah, help your buyers recognize they're building a resume for that big purchase down the road. I was asked early on in my career, how does someone buy $1 million house? I mean, this is 25 years ago. And I said, well, they probably didn't just buy $1 million house. It's their fourth house or their fifth house. They rolled equity, they built credibility, they saved money. And they built a resume that a lender would be excited to loan them the money required for a jumbo loan. But you've got to start somewhere. You have to have your first job to get a second job, your first house to get a second house.
Yeah.
And the
Toya,
only,
I don't think you have the article pulled up about Guatemala.
no, I do not.
Yeah, that's
So
fun.
just I don't know if you can find it real quick or whatever, but KW announced this week that Guatemala is the next country that KW is going into. However, it made me think about something. And I was at the Zillow conference a couple of weeks back, and they were talking about how the Spanish speaking consumer is a rapid growing demographic, one, and two, I'm going to give you an opinion. I would believe somebody that spoke English as a second language or didn't speak English very well, probably wasn't super comfortable going to websites to look for information. And I believe the big aggregators are waking up to that and are quickly creating Spanish options when they go to a realtor.com or a Zillow or things like that. So what I would encourage is, it's not for everybody, but for some, it could be very strategic to put learning Spanish on your growth plan. And I believe, I heard recently that Rosetta Stone will give you a lifetime membership for like $200 or something like that. And then I also heard, Rick's got me reading this book, and I think Gary called Outlive, and Gary Keller was talking about building that tough muscle in your mind. And one of the things that he said was, if you're looking to build long-term and mental stress test on your mind, learning a music instrument or doing art or learning a foreign language, actually it has a lot of health benefits. So I think Spanish could be very strategic. And I just thought of that when I saw the KW went into Guatemala.
Yes,
Who,
they did.
who wants a but who? All right, show up. I wish everyone had their cameras on. Who wants a hack?
Yeah,
Just hire a bilingual agent for your team.
there you go.
That's the way to. Now, I agree with everything Brett said, by the way, 100%. And I want to share one quick story too. It's a pretty awesome story because I hosted a 5-year future self workshop probably 10 years ago now, where Michelle Rios and Louise came. They're out of the Chattahoochee North office, if my memory serves. And on her 5-year future self, she said, "I want an investment in a KW office." And I said, "Well, where does your network, your expertise, your connection?" And they're bilingual. They're from Mexico originally. And she said, "Mexico." And I said, "Well, you've got to proactively get after it, because the two ways that someone gets an introduction into an investment, and this is almost global, is either capital or influence. And so which of those do you bring to the experience if you want to have an investment stake in an office or in a region or an opportunity or any business?" And they said, "Well, Mexico is probably our greatest chance because of the saturation locally." She started going, she went to the International Family Reunion the very next year, started networking, created value, flew down there, helped them establish. She's now an investor in Mexico in multiple offices. It's a pretty awesome story, but it's a proactive, vision-based, activity-supported story. That's the key piece.
I
All
love it.
right, well, we're at time. Any questions, thoughts? We'll take it all.
I think we're good.
All
Good to
right.
see you. I love the people that turn on their cameras. Great to see you. What's up,
Yeah.
Matt, Mika, Callie,
Yeah.
Manny, Jennifer? Look at James popped in. I like it.
There you go. Now they're turning their cameras on.
Never too late to get called out. This is like that. You know, what was that show when we were kids? I see, and they start naming people, and you're like, just say Rick, just say Rick. I'm probably the only one old enough. It was either Electric Company or Sesame Street. Heck, I don't.
I think there are a few of us that remember
I
that.
just aged myself, didn't I?
You did.
But they'd randomly name names, and I couldn't wait to hear my name. It didn't happen often. But
There
I'm
you go.
calling you out. You guys are awesome.
Awesome.
Y'all have a good week.
See you
Thanks.
guys.
Great info. Thanks.